want to wait on Andrew Scott?
It's up to you. I think if something comes up, he should be the first item you.
Yeah, I agree.
Want.
We'll give him a minute or two of grace here before we get going. I was trying to reach him this afternoon to ask him a couple questions, but I was not able to do so. We weren't able to connect. Well, Scott's comment says it's pulled. I think they are. If that's the case, there's no public comments in standing. These people here don't have any standing if they pull and do it. We will call to order the regular meeting of the Maumelle Planning Commission for today of January 23, 2025. Call to order. Do we have any announcements from staff?
Yes, Mr. Chair. We just have one announcement. Commissioner Winnick's term ends at the end of this month with the expected appointment, or in her case, a reappointment by the City Council at the first meeting in February. And that's all we have.
Mr. Grummer, do we need to go through like we did the last meeting for the AI software, or?
That would be helpful if you wouldn't mind.
Okay. I guess we'll start at the end. I don't want to really necessarily call roll. We can go in order. Mr. Thornton.
Andrew Thornton. Sorry, in the mic.
Yes.
Andrew Thornton, City Attorney.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Mary Winnick.
Commissioner John Jones.
Planner 2, Jason Lyon.
Chairman Craig Johnson.
Vice Chairman Tracy Gill.
Commissioner Alice Folk.
Commissioner Rusty Ray.
Commissioner Lauren Rose.
Planning Director Scott Grummer.
Thank you very much. Now we'll hear the approval amendments for the December 19th, 2024. They were included in the packet and in the e-packet as well too. Are there any changes or additions or comments to those minutes? Chair will entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve the minutes from the December 19th, 2024 Maumelle Planning Commission regular meeting.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and second, we will now act on the approval of the minutes for the December 19th, 2024 meeting. All those for approving the minutes say yes.
Yes.
All those opposed, no. The motion passes. The minutes are approved. I do have some public comments. So they are all on an agenda item this evening, so we will hear those at the appropriate time of that item. So we will now open the public hearing, and our first order of old business is SUB 21-8, which is the PTI Preliminary Development Plan Amendment. This is a proposed amendment on the previously approved Preliminary Development Plan for PTI on the landscape. This is location at 223 Country Club Parkway. We do have an applicant representative that's here. I don't see the owner yet, but he's here. So this is going to be a proposed preliminary development plan that really surrounds issue of landscaping. Who's from staff is taking the item?
I'll take this one, Mr. Chair. So if you recall, this was deferred from the last meeting to this meeting so that we could get with the PTI applicants and as well as go through and come up with a plan for their request on the amendment to the landscape plan. So since then, we provided you a staff report. Of course, the staff report that we provided is from the original, and we provided updates with the date that pertains to tonight. And I'll just read through that for the audience in attendance. So additional staff comments for January 2025. Applicant originally submitted a request in December 2024 to amend landscaping requirements to leave the western boundary of the property phase 2 natural and undisturbed. Upon public comments submitted in discussion in December, the applicant submitted a letter in January of 2025 to withdraw their application at the January 2025 PC meeting after public comment with intent to meet the spirit of the currently approved landscape plan. Staff's interpretation of the approved landscape plan along the western border is intended to be planted natural screen as noted in the approved development plan, with the understanding that plantings may be arranged randomly to accomplish the stated goal of a natural screen while leaving existing natural vegetation. Plantings should be evergreen, providing screening year-round. Adjacent residents stated they have no flooding, drainage, stormwater, or foundation issues as of current, so no modifications to drainage along the western boundary would be needed at this time. Any future development of Phase 2 would require approval by Planning Commission of an updated site plan if different from what was approved. And then additional recommendations from staff. Staff supports the withdrawal of the request with the understanding that the language from the approved development plan along the western boundary, the 40-foot buffer area stating densely planted evergreens for screening commercial use would prevail, which would allow for randomly planted evergreens among existing natural vegetation to achieve the spirit of the plan to create a natural screen with types and sizes of plantings to comply with the city ordinance. So in addition to those comments, I just kind of wanted to state that when we made the recommendation back in 2023, the intent of staff was to provide a natural screen that was originally approved by Planning Commission so that it had time to grow to create that screen so that when Phase 2 is built, it would already be built up and it would reduce the impacts to the residents when that phase comes in. Whether or not how that is planted or how it's designed, I think the landscape plan did show a specific kind of detailed design, but technically, in most of the time, the applicants do come in with modifications to the landscape plan, so we have to make sure that it complies with the ordinance and the requirements and the intent of what the Planning Commission was trying to achieve. So, with that being said, the original landscape plan had a nicely designed on the western boundary, but being that Phase 2 is not being built right now, that type of design over there really serves no purpose at this point in time. So that's really not the staff's intent. The intent is to make sure that we have a screen that's built over there. To my understanding, they believe that they would like to leave it as a natural area and plant the densely planted evergreens. And when Phase 2 comes in, I'm assuming they're going to want to leave that, so they're going to have to, when they come back with the site plan with Planning Commission, then we would address any modifications at that time if it needs to be done. And so my final statement is that we feel that by withdrawing it and doing what they're asking, they will have to provide plans to the city to show where those plantings are going to be so that we can make sure the alignments are proper, the distancing is proper, so that when they're built in, when they grow in, they'll create the natural vegetation screen. Now, I do want to point out, we did receive a letter from the adjacent residents, and I believe they spoke at the last meeting. And I wanted to touch base, just not read the whole thing, but kind of go through just to answer some of their questions so that they know that how these things are addressed. I did mention in their letter, they stated no flooding foundation issues as of today, so they certainly don't want anything into the future. They did ask about the green zone for Phase 2 and to address stormwater mitigation. Now, that would come with the civil plans with the Phase 2 whenever that's designed. So right now, they're leaving it as is. There's no need for any modifications because the work that they've done is not increasing any drainage issues at this point in time. But when that Phase 2 comes in, we'll make sure that part of the civil plans is to mitigating the issues drainage-wise. They stated a start no later than date concerning the green zone plantings as well as the sizing of the tree. Now, they did ask for an 8-foot tall when planted. Now, I will say that our code does not require that size of tree. So from the city standpoint, that's not something that we can, in my opinion, place as a condition on any approval of this. But I would say that that we will make sure that they meet the intent of what the residents and what the staff are wanting to create an evergreen screen. And then as far as a start date, that's all in the ordinance. We tie that with based on the timing of the winter, you can't plant anything right now, so you've got to wait. We require landscaping bonds on these if there's a temporary building, temporary certificate of occupancy until they get all the plantings in, and we do not, and we verify to make sure the plantings are in properly, or else we call that bond. So that's the security that the city gets, and that's by ordinance. And then the green zone, again, there was other comments there. We follow code as to the timing and the financial instruments. And then the last part of their letter dealing with dirt work and all of that, runoff, stormwater, again, that comes with the Phase 2 civil plan, so we'll monitor and manage that. So I feel like that based on where we're at, I believe by withdrawing this, we would meet the intent of the plan as well as the request from the residents. But again, I wanted the public hearing so that the residents had the opportunity to speak to that, and if the commission had anything else they wish to address, or we can address it here before it's withdrawn.
I understand, is the applicant, the letter that I have, it says we will attend the planning commission meeting for January 23rd meeting, where we will formally withdraw our application. There is a representative, the owner, it's here, and I want to make sure that that is the intent. He's nodding his head and not acknowledging the podium, but I want to ask him to come forward and do that.
That is the intent, and I would just ask the chair to see if there's, I guess, before it is formally withdrawn, that.
Yeah, I'm going to handle that a little separately.
Okay, yes, sir.
Roy Andrews, Holloway Engineering. Yes, that is the intent, and we would yield to public comment if the council so desires.
So, as such, the application will be withdrawn, and the public notice, or the public comment cards that we have were on this, but I will permit a public comment being it being a non-agenda item. So we're happy to hear from you. I don't want to not prevent you. You showed up, but the item is officially withdrawn. So and I don't know, Mr. Grummer went through a lot of discussion and description there, and you may have questions about that, and we're happy if you want to come forward and you want to ask so you understand the process. But the applicant in this case has withdrawn his amendment to the landscape plan, and he's going to, if you will, adhere to the original submission in the spirit of what the original submission was. But we're happy to hear any comments that you have. I didn't want to be dismissive of it, but I wanted to be able to remove it from the agenda, and it is withdrawn, and hear it under a non-agenda item. Any questions? We'd ask if you have some, you come up and speak, and we don't want to be dismissive of you. I just, from the chairman's point of view, that was how I elected to handle it, so. Because the reason why that I elected to do in that manner is because we're not acting on it, if you understand.
And again, I'm William Engberg, 104 Calais. I'm kind of speaking as a representative. Seems like success is on the horizon. And so everything that's been addressed, my only reason for standing up is since I don't know the process, I just wanted to make sure that I addressed to make sure that the 6th January letter was officially entered and or recognized as a correctly entered, you know.
It's in the packet.
Yeah,
It is a matter of record in the packet.
Matter of record, that's all I was shooting for. And then wherever possible, again, our concern is that we get a plan that has specifically like the green giant arbor vitae, that if a shrub is planted, it's not something that grows 1 inch a year. Right. And that specifically like a green giant arbor vitae is something that's gonna get wide. And our only real concern is that it's tall enough with enough depth or thickness that is, you know, build anything you want as tall as you want. We just want to be able to stand on our back deck and not see a commercial wall of the backside of a building. So aside from that, and again, if we can, we're happy with avoiding a bond if there's a start no later than or end no later than date, because obviously we would like an amount of growth that if the Phase 2 goes 8 years from now, well, we'd like 8 years of growth between now and then, so that, again, there's a depth and a height that can be establishing itself by the start of Phase 2.
Understood.
All right. Thank you, appreciate
Thank
your
you
time.
for your attendance this evening, we appreciate it very much. So low business on item 1 is withdrawn. Then we'll move on to new business, which is STP 24-6 for the used storage expansion. This is proposed site plan review for the expansion of existing mini storage business on 101 Commerce, the old Kroger Center, for those that are old heads here. The applicant representative is Mr. Cody Ferris. He is in attendance this evening. So we have 3 items of separate action under this used storage expansion: the proposed site plan, the proposed landscape plan, and proposed commercial building design. We will take them one at a time, and the first is the proposed site plan.
Commissioners, if you'll look at your site plan review, the staff reports, what's being proposed is an expansion of the existing mini storage business by adding 3 additional buildings of roughly 16,275 square feet total. This does bring up the lot coverage area to 35%, which is the maximum lot coverage for a C3 zoning. They are adding it out in the parking lot, so it is in front of the main building, but that's not a conflict. So with the site plan, and it all kind of covers the commercial building design too, so if chair is okay, I can speak to all elements at the same time.
You may.
The main concerns, as you read, are potential utility conflicts underneath the buildings. We believe there's some private drainage and other utilities that need to be double checked before civil plans and any buildings are permitted. We went out with Shawcat, our city engineer, last week, and we looked at some of the drainage out there, and there'll be a further more extensive drainage report and done with the civils. One thing of note, and I apologize for the late find on it, upon further research last week, and I already spoke with the applicant. If you remember, in 2021, we rezoned the property to the north and east from a C3 to a PRD. With that, this put the property in non-conformance. In our code, a C3, certain uses are permitted by right in a C3, but when they abut a residential zone, they become a conditional use. So the initial mini storage expansion was approved in 2019, prior to the Pfeiffer property being rezoned, and once it got rezoned to PRD, it put this property in non-conformance, and per our code, any expansion or alterations requires a conditional use permit. That is 94-552B2. With that said, the applicant intends to bring the conditional use forward next month, and as a staff, we recommend go ahead and voting on this and make the contingency on a conditional use permit approval for mini storage. So with that, I'm done with the site plan portion of it. I can read through additional comments as needed, but that's the simplified site plan.
What is triggering the conditional, you're asking us to move forward with these items with the site plan coming in the rears? With the conditional use coming in the rears?
Yes, because we didn't recognize until we dug deeper into the code that, and this was with also talking with our city attorney, that even though the mini storage was in place prior to the rezoning of the property abutting it to residential, the 94-552B2 still stands, and it would be considered non-conforming, and because it is an expansion, that it now does require a conditional use to expand. And due to the late timing, we've requested, we feel that's okay we recommend approval of this contingent on, of course, on our staff, city engineer, commissioner comments, but also contingent on the conditional use permit approval for mini storage on this site.
So it's going to be conditioned on the conditional use that's going to be coming next month, and are all of these at commission level? Or any of these going to council?
All of these are staying with the planning commission here, so.
He'll be approved on all 3 of these items pending the conditional use, which was then his recommendation to city council.
That's correct. And one of the reasons why we feel this is okay is that we don't see the conditional use impacting anything dealing with the landscape, the design or the site plan. It's merely just to accommodate the zoning requirement that requires a conditional use for this use next to residential.
Okay. I don't think we've ever done permit.
Right, well,
If he has to come back for the conditional use permit anyway, I'm not asking him to defer, but
Right.
then all three of these items could be held, could be with the conditional use permit. And the conditional use permit requires public notification, does it not?
yes, it does. And so a conditional use permit, it's a resolution with the city council, so then you're talking about
We're approving a site, I'm just wondering
I just-
what you're asking us to do.
right.
You're asking us to go ahead and approve these three items tonight without hearing the conditional use permit, which has public input.
right.
So we would not be afforded to hear the public on this conditional use permit that may or may not affect the proposed
Well,
plan.
Well, and, I mean, technically, if you deferred it to next month with the conditional use permit, you would still be approving it conditioned upon its approval with city council, because it'll be going, but you would be
course.
hearing it with the conditional, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the public would be heard.
Right. So,
Counselor,
that's good.
is this, I mean, I don't,
I think the commission can table it if that's what they wish, or approve it as Mr. Lyon said, contingent on conditional use. Practically
so
speaking,
in that case, we would, if we hear a public comment that has any direction for us to consider not saying that we would, a modification to the site plan, then it's already approved and you would have to come back again if we thought that highly of it. I don't know. Once it's approved, it's approved. I guess is my point. And we need to hear something on public comment. And I hate it for the applicant.
Well, I think if there is further comments, even public comments on it, then it would depend on the modification, the level of modification of the site plan. If it's a major modification, yes, it would come back to the planning commission.
It's not gonna hold the applicant up
Yeah.
anymore
Yeah.
either way.
So we're just.
Yeah, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have?
I have a question on that. I think I heard your point. If we do defer this to the 27th, will it affect your schedule any?
No, we already gotta come back.
You already have to come back, so I move to defer site plan 24-6 use storage expansion until February 27th,
I'll give-
2025.
I'll give the floor, let's hold
Hold
the
on.
motion just a second.
Okay.
Let's hear Mr. Ferris, making sure that he's okay with that approach. Just a little bit of parliamentary procedure. And I don't, if I would've heard that before, I'd wanna bring, well, if it was enough notification that, we had a snow in there.
Yeah.
And some other things that messed us up this month, and I apologize, for the little bit of late entry, but I do feel that it would be better to be heard. And I'm not expecting it to, we're not gonna have, I don't think, a whole room full, I've said that before, and we've had before, but, to hear that, and then hear it, and it'd be a little bit more cleaner, I think,
Correct.
for our standpoint, if the applicant's okay with that.
Yeah, I think, well, Cody Ferris, Sow Architects, 1315 North Street. Yeah, I think that's fine. Regardless, we have to come back because of the conditional use. The one thing I do want to point out is the client has asked, why is this happening? Because he was a storage facility on that site prior to residential. And so just some justification for that. I can explain that to him better after tonight, but
I would encourage you to take those issue up with staff.
yeah,
With that concern with staff.
Uh,
understand.
Well, I can speak to that if you need to, but typically, and this happens all over whenever you have zoning changes, and adjacent properties can be affected by those zoning changes, so you become where you're a conforming use at one point, you can become an existing non-conforming use because of the zoning changes around you. And that's just the technical aspect of it, but it will not affect his current operations. That's existing, grandfathered in, but unfortunately, with the expansion, it brings in the current zoning requirements, and we have to apply the zoning requirement. of
And
that.
that may be something that comes up in his mind is what additional items are you gonna now require? As far
Nothing.
as landscaping or?
Right.
Okay.
And I don't, so, well, I say that, now, this should probably be a case for the city attorney, would a conditional use, being that we require now a conditional use for the expanded portion would, the conditional use, if there were any conditions placed on it, would it go against the existing building?
Something I'll research. I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't think we've come across this in the last 2 years that I've been here. Yeah, the thing that triggered the conditional use is the enlargement or expansion
Right.
of the warehouse.
Is the residential property Ron Harris's, that's,
It is, yes.
is there any
He's the
active one,
representative.
is anyone actively living in that neighborhood?
No.
So is he who we would send the
Yes.
Okay.
Well, actually, it would go to Gene Pfeiffer, who is the, Gene Pfeiffer is owner of the property. I believe a few of the lots have been transferred to Ron Harris. Yeah, so you'd have two, Ron Harris and Gene Pfeiffer.
Yeah, Cody, I will send you the 300-foot list if I haven't yet.
Staff will provide that to you.
Excellent.
Any other questions you have?
Nope.
Okay, Chair will entertain a motion of table
Thank you.
this item for the next commission meeting. In the motion, please indicate that that is February the 27th, 2025.
Need a second.
Need a motion first and then a second.
I'll go
Mr.
with the motion.
Mr. Chair, I guess in wording your motion, if you would mind just making the motion for all three items
Very good.
and not
Okay.
just one.
Not a problem. I move to table site plan 24-6, restored expansion, proposed site plan, proposed landscape plan, proposed commercial building design plan until the February 27th, 2025 meeting.
Second.
Hearing a first and second, we will now act on deferring STP 24-6 for the use stored expansion for proposed site plan, landscape plan, proposed commercial building design until February 27, 2025, the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Planning Commission. All those for this action indicate by saying yes.
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 All those opposed, no. Motion carries and it is tabled to our next meeting on the 27th. Our second item of new business here, SUB 24-1, Stony Mountain subdivision extension request. This is a first extension request for the Stony Mountain subdivision for the location at 12,022 Trax Road. We do have representation here tonight, pretty parliamentary procedure here for the application. Which, Jason, are you taking it? You're about to speak.
Yeah, no, it's just a straightforward extension request that they are allowed to do. This would be the first of two that can be granted at the planning commission level, and per code. If they have to go for a third, they would have to go to council, but it's a pretty standard extension request when a project is delayed.
Very good. This is for 1 year from today's date, correct?
That'd be correct.
That is correct.
Very good. Questions, commissioners? Chair, entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve an extension for SUB 24-1 Stony Mountain subdivision extension request for 1 year.
Thank you, sir. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and second, the commission will now act on the first extension request for the Stony Mountain subdivision, which is SUB 24-1. All those in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
Yes. No. Motion carries for 1 year extension on Stony Mountain subdivision. We'll close public hearing. Moving to City Council liaison reports, the first report and her first ever for a planning commissioner from the City Council liaison. Think she might be a little nervous. We'll go easy on her. Is Commissioner Rose.
Thank you to Chairman Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so for my liaison report from the January 6, 2025 City Council meeting, there was the first reading of Ordinance 1141, and that was to amend the Maumelle City Code concerning storm drainage, presented by Mr. Scott Grummer. And that is for an update to the 100-year flood plan to keep proper areas and protect surrounding properties from, including residential, from flooding. And the second reading occurred on the next City Council meeting.
That's correct. That's the only item of City Council business. That was my month for January, my date for January 21, 2025. So second reading. There. I don't know at first. I didn't look at the video, but there was no discussion on the second. Sometimes they save the best for last with the third reading, but there wasn't any discussion on the video. The next month, City Council liaison, I guess Commissioner Ray will tell us the good news of our hard work regarding the drainage ordinance modification. And then February the 18th is Commissioner Jones. It's a Tuesday. Commissioner Jones? Anything else coming before us this evening? If not, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Hearing a first and second for adjournment, we'll all act on that, all by saying, if you're in favor, by saying yes.
Yes.
We are adjourned.